Hello, ladies and gentlemen out there in Radioland. This is those Muckrakers coming to you live once again through the power of the internet. I'm Pat.
I'm technical difficulty Pete because my camera's not working right now.
Oh, and I'm Bobby, coming to you live from Savannah, Georgia. Well, I guess we're not live because this is recorded, but yeah.
And this is episode 124. And in today's episode, tell them if you've all had your horse douches so that you're immunized against COVID, Pete and Bobby.
What? Wait.
You're so the fun thing, by the way, since we last spoke, people are now taking horse dewormer because somebody told them that it would help with COVID. And the best part about it is
people that anti-vaxxers are trusting like horse medicine to fix the COVID because it's not official sources telling them about it, so that's more trusted.
And I love all the fuck faces, because they really are fuck faces, who are like, ivermectin also has a human component. Me. Yeah, I know. That's not why every feed and seed coast to coast is currently out of the horse version of ivermectin.
Well, the best part is they don't even Google like measurements, right? Because a horse is like a 2,000-pound animal.
Facebook. Yeah. They're just going to Facebook and going, so my wife weighs 392 pounds. About how much of a tablespoon of ivermectin should she take? Like, no, but the greatest one was somebody tweeted, they were like, America is now officially 54% fully vaccinated and 27% dewormed.
Yeah. and this is going to make me sound real stupid, but there was a time in which I was very poor and I got sick and I didn't have money for a doctor. But what I did have was I had antibiotics from when my cat went to the vet. I had amoxicillin, right? Yeah. And I did my research and found out what the dosage would be for like a 200-pound man, and also if I could take cat medicine.
Probably, very likely.
Yeah, and so I did all the research and took it, and people were like, "Why don't you just go to the doctor?" And I'm like, "Because amoxicillin's free, bitch." But I didn't go, "Let me drink all of this and hope for the best."
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, it's a little bit different too because the COVID vaccine's free, so it's not like that's going to cost you anything.
Yeah, that too.
And somebody pointed it out. They're like, the next time some fucking capitalist piece of shit is like, well, we can't give away free homes and free college education because it will just create scarcity because everyone will just be jumping on it. I'm like, okay. Why are Americans not consuming infinite amounts of the COVID-19 vaccine?
Yeah.
It's free. And people are hesitant to take it. Yeah, not everybody's going to go to college. You know, it's This
is going to make me sound bad, but the media
don't get stuff just because it's free. I mean, otherwise every picture would be downloaded off the internet. Like people are still just going to bother with stuff that they feel like bothering with.
The media keeps reporting these as like these feel-good stories where like I saw one the other day, I think from Statesboro. It was like high school principal gets COVID and they had to go and like the doctors and nurses worked 24 hours around the clock to find a hospital with an open bed so they could put him on a ventilator and save his life. And now he's back. And I'm like, this isn't a feel-good story. This is a fuck you for taking resources away from people who actually need it because you didn't get vaccinated, you piece of shit.
Yeah. Well, and I can understand vaccine hesitancy from some groups like African Americans.
Right, especially in like Mississippi.
Yeah. I can understand. I really, really can. And the scientific community needs to, and they have been, over the last couple of years, we've seen the rise of what's called like professional science commuators. You know, basically a whole bunch of people who were doing what Bill Nye was doing in the 90s.
Right.
You know, basically not I guess not like Bill Nye in the 90s, more like Bill Nye now in that, you know, they're breaking, like there's people like Kyle Hill. I really like Kyle Hill, and it's not just because he's a dollar store Thor impersonator.
Nice.
He's breaking stuff down and making science interesting for adults. You know, and it's not, you know, childish explanations. And there's a whole bunch of people who are in various different fields, from astronomy to medical science to you know, human medicine to animal medicine, who are like, you know, trying to communicate with the public. And it's just such a cool fucking job. And I wish I had gotten on board with that back whenever I was in college, because that is definitely what I would like to do.
I don't have the temperament for it, in that like I would just get to a point where I would be on a TV screen or in front of a bunch of people that are like, I'm not sure about I'm not sure about this vaccine. I'm gonna be like, just fucking put it in your fucking pie hole. Like,
I don't know about this. Just start smacking them like the lady on the subway.
Or I load one of those really nice Nerf guns with syringes full of fucking vaccine.
Like a free T-shirt gun, and you just start firing it to the audience.
Yeah, just a T-shirt gun full of fucking vaccine needles, and I'm just walking around like pow, pow, pow.
Yeah. No, one of the things that's come up recently with COVID, and I really hope that it catches on in the conservative conspiracy world, because it will mean that more people will get vaccinated.
Right.
But an AM talk radio conservative talking head is who admittedly has been pro-vaccine from day one, has been telling his listeners, you need to get vaccinated. He's not one of these chuds who's like vaccinated themselves and going, well, why do they not want us to take horse dewormer? Like, he's not one of those people. But now he's flipped the script and he's blaming the right's vaccine hesitancy on liberals, saying that they want you to die of this virus. And
I like that because it could actually save lives.
Yeah.
Exactly,
But it would trick them into saving their own life. Like, oh, the liberals want me to die then. Well, now I'm going to live just to spite them.
Yeah.
Someone tweeted a photo of Bill Gates laughing, and the caption read, putting all the tracking chips in horse dewormer was initially not seen as a good idea, but now it's a stroke of genius.
It's and honestly, it's because their whole thing is they want to own the libs, right? They want all those they want the coffee mugs that say like full of liberal tears. So they're owning the libs by dying in massive numbers of COVID. That's how they're owning the libs right now.
Well done.
So when they realize that like maybe they've been tricked and that's not what ownage looks like, then they're like, fuck, I gotta live.
Yeah.
Like
you can't own the libs if you're
my issue is too, like the part of it is like, I don't want the hospitals to fill up, because like right now I have a grandmother that's on her way out, and they had to put her in a place up near Atlanta because they just couldn't find, a hospital to like put her. And that's frustrating. And like, there's people that have died of preventable stuff because all the beds are full of COVID, and that's super frustrating. But also like, there's people I work with that won't get vaccinated. And honestly, I just want to take them aside and be like, listen, the real reason I want you to get vaccinated is because I think you're an all right person, and I don't want you to die a horrible death and orphan your kids.
Well, it's also the people who were like, oh, it's only a 2% morbidity rate, I'll take my chances. I'm like, okay, so 2% are the number of people who die.
Yeah.
Okay. 60% of the people who get COVID are looking at super long-term complications. 20% are ending up disabled.
Yeah.
It's not a 2% chance of something going wrong.
It's like if you look at the numbers of like what do you call it, casualties in war, it's not just dead, it's people that have varying levels of like disability from the trauma, whether it be mental or physical.
During the Trump administration, whenever he basically took the gloves off and told them, okay, civilian casualties are totally fine by me, sort of loosened the rules of engagement, which our police forces currently don't have, by the way. They don't have really rules of engagement like the military in a war zone does, for all the jacking off that police groups like to do about how we're in a war against definitely not just black people. Anyway,
it's definitely just black people. Oh no, the Mexicans too. Anyone not white, basically.
And hippies.
Taliban basically
and hippies.
shifted. They told their fighters basically, we're shifting our mentality too. We want you to create paraplegics.
Wait, hold on. I missed something here.
Basically, the Taliban re-instructed their fighters, don't just kill them. Shoot their legs, shoot their arms, and
disable them. Just create like a massive number of
creating a massive
people.
Number of disabled veterans, and it was.
I could see that being I could see that as being a tactically smart idea, because then the other side would want to keep those people alive, and that would drain resources.
Yeah, that's basic guerrilla warfare. If you are fighting against superior force, you don't kill people, you create wounded that then require resources to take care of.
And like they're no longer able to
Which if Robert E. Lee
fight
had
you in
been
the field.
smart, he would have adopted guerrilla tactics. But Robert E. Lee, as
if Robert E. Lee had been smart, he would have done a lot of fucking things different.
Robert E. Lee was a brilliant tactician. He was horrible at strategy. He just kept throwing lives into meat grinder after meat grinder. And yeah, he was getting some wins, but he was also losing very limited manpower. I mean, if you look at the history of the Confederacy, which, by the way, as of this year, gay marriage has been around longer than the Confederacy lasted. But if you look at
it's a real big fucking deal, Barack.
If you look at the stats, like Grant was, it came down to a war of attrition, and Lee never made that connection because he was too focused on, let's focus on this one battle. Let's focus on this one siege. Let's focus on this one troop movement. He was never a big picture guy.
He was too laser focused. He couldn't like pull back and realize, oh, well, if we pour everything into this, it'd be a Pyrrhic victory and we'll be fucked on everything else.
I'm sure that he did pull back, like just knowing what I know about the history of the Civil War and the tactics of Robert E. Lee. Like I say, brilliant tactician, horrible strategist. He probably saw the big picture and completely misread it. Like that's the thing. It's he couldn't see the big picture. It's that he was incapable of making sense of it.
But to circle it back around to like the whole COVID thing, people are forgetting about COVID casualties. It's not just dead. It's like I just saw a guy the other day. They wrote it as like a feel good story. He survived COVID and got a double lung transplant. And I go, he's still fucked. If you look up what
the failure rate of organs,
if you look up what it means to get a double lung transplant, you have a much shortened lifespan. You're on so many anti-rejection drugs that anything else that normal people just, I got a cough, will kill you. So he just bought time, and not great time.
Yeah.
So like those guys, think about how many people got lung transplants, how many people are like semi or fully disabled.
Think about how many people
lung surgery is also really goddamn awful to recover from.
Think about how many people in overtaxed hospitals didn't get a lung transplant because the hospitals simply couldn't handle all of this that was going on.
It's like ripples in a pond.
And die.
And we don't even know the long-term damage COVID does to people. There's I know this is anecdotal, but my fiance, I'm trying to remember how she knows this person. Their son got COVID.
What you're about to say, I'm trying to remember who she is.
No.
Say, damn, what's her name?
This guy got COVID and recovered seemingly regularly, but now he's having I can't remember if it's pancreas or prostate problems. And he's like 34.
Yeah.
And they think it's related to COVID. So like anybody that thinks it's better to get the COVID than the vaccine, we don't know what the vaccine will do. Well, we don't know what COVID will do either, but we know.
No. It's not good. I'm scared that the COVID vaccine will affect my fertility. Well, you know what really affects fertility? Being dead.
Yeah.
That really affects fertility.
Yeah, that one lady on the news saying that she heard from like a cousin's balls in another country stopped working. You mean oh god, it
wasn't Cardi B, it was
Cardi B.
It was Cardi B. It was Cardi B.
Was it Cardi B?
Because Hassan Piker.
She heard that like a friend's, cousin's, uncle's, nephew's, brother's former roommate, like his balls stopped working after getting the vaccine in another country. And I'm like, first of all, hey, that's another country. So
no, it was Nicki Minaj. We're all racist white men. It's not. It wasn't Cardi B.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, I have the tweet right here.
Cardi B.
I never heard who it was. I just
about the vaccine and stuff, and she retweeted Tucker Carlson, going like, "This guy really has a, this guy gets what I'm saying."
That's the Fox News circle jerk, right? Where like crazy people say it, Fox News reports it, then they retweet Fox News and say, "Look, it's even on Fox News now." Those are your own words.
Exactly.
Though.
Yeah, but this was more.
That's the literal definition of an echo chamber.
So left-wing Twitch streamer Hassan Piker, known as Hassan Abi, he's a Turkish, white-passing Turkish guy.
I love Hassan Piker,
he is just during one of his live streams was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to ratio and get her attention. And he just, tweeted at her and said, that guy's a white nationalist, right? And so she comes back and retweets him and goes, oh, well, everyone knows that, black people, we always have to pay attention to one party and not do anything the other party says or does, and we can't agree with them. And literally, she specifically said this: if a Democrat says shove marbles in your ass, you better start doing it right away. But if a Republican says you're about to be hit by a bus, you better stand there and get hit by a bus. And like, I'm sitting here going, and like Hassan started typing out, Tucker Carlson wants people like you and me back to the back of the bus. And then he deleted it before sending it because his chatter was telling him, don't send that, don't send that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Hassan, do not send that, do not send that. And he goes, yeah, it's just me being a fucking dumbass, privileged, white passing, Turk. And he's like, he didn't send it, but immediately people, because he was live streaming, screen capped it and started spreading it around that, oh, he deleted this tweet after he realized it was a bad idea. And they're like, no, he didn't fucking delete the tweet. He didn't tweet it and then delete it. Anyway, it was just a whole fucking mess. And you have another, leftist voice. People are trying to cancel. People with fucking anime avatars are trying to cancel. And I'm sitting here going, how is this helpful? How is this helpful?
Nikki, I got the tweet from Nicki Minaj real quick. She says, my cousin in Trinidad won't get the vaccine because his friend got it and became impotent. His testicles became swollen. His friend was weeks away from getting married. Now the girl called off the wedding. So just pray on it and make sure you're comfortable with your decision, not bullied. And when my fiance read that, she goes, no, he had an STD. That wasn't from the shot.
Yeah, he was just blaming it on the shot.
I love it. It's that picture from, I think, Interview with a Vampire, where like Lestat and all of them are like standing on top of like a marble balcony and they're just peering down at the mere mortals beneath them. And somebody captioned it with me and my other vaccinated friends looking down on all of you unwashed trash with your normal sized testicles.
But yeah, any ladies, if any women listen to this, anytime a guy or guys, anybody dating a guy, anytime a guy comes to you and it's like, oh, my testicles are swollen, must be something I got from a toilet seat or a vaccine. That motherfucker got an STD.
The classic, oh no, the hot tub got me pregnant. No, you've been cheating.
Yeah. No.
People always blame like weird shit on
somebody put their genitals where they weren't supposed to.
Yeah. I think that should be part of sex ed, is that you cannot get pregnant from a hot tub. Like that should literally.
Well, now they have to add
that, and the whole demonstration of, see this regular sized condom? He's not too big for the condom. Like, both of those things need to be taught in sex ed.
Now they have to add, you also can't get pregnant from a vaccine, nor can you get an STD from a vaccine.
Yeah. Syphilis does not come from the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, that comes from you being somewhere you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was I like it when people that have influence and power refuse to recognize like what you say affects people, and there are people that will do that will listen to you and make bad decisions based on what Nicki Minaj says.
Yeah, like that's the real problem with what she's saying, is that she is an influencer and she may have just talked some people out of getting the vaccine and into the crypt, right? Like she could have just like, killed people with that nonsense.
Who is like, you know what? I know doctors are saying this, but my cousin's brother's friend's son's daughter's neighbor.
Oh, I know tons of people like that.
That a guy, like the fucking. Who? What?
And I can't help but think that some of this, some of it is genuine fear from people who have cause to be fearful. But some of it is, a lot of people in this country have not interacted with a doctor since high school.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
because in America it's prohibitively expensive to have a doctor.
So you don't.
That's another thing. It's the American mentality of, if you're sick, you just brace and you deal with it. We're so used to never seeking medical help for anything because that shit's expensive, right? I mean, you don't go to the doctor unless you are dead.
I come from a family of nurses, and the general rule of thumb was, if the sickness lasts longer than a week and doesn't seem to get better, then you go to a doctor.
That's my parents' mentality too. And my mom nearly died from that when her what was it? Freaking
her appendix
exploded, right? It burst. A few days later, she went to the doctor when she was no longer able to eat or drink anymore, and she wasn't able to for a good long while. Like her body just refused to let her imbibe anything. Then she was like, okay, maybe I should go see someone about this.
Yeah, that's when they found out it had burst. It's all gone wrong. It's wrong. You don't have plumbing down there anymore. It's done.
Most people only live like 30 minutes to a few hours after their appendix burst. She held on for several days.
Oh my God. Buzzing.
But you don't hear people yell about busting enough anymore.
Busing. Yeah. The last time I heard about that was in the campaign trail with
whenever they were
Kamala
bringing
Harris.
up that Joe Biden was super concerned about busing.
Mm.
Oh man, Joe Biden. I really do think that like Joe Biden's handlers, they need to just let him off the leash. Like they really do. Like I want Uncle Joe back. I think a good dose of like
He
Biden
does act different as President Joe than Uncle
Right,
Joe.
because he's not doing the whole like, man, will you shut up? You know, and like threatening to
For the
punch
love
people.
of democracy, would you shut up, man?
I'm sorry, but
Also from ERB reference.
It's a new status of things Americans expect from their president. Memeability. All right. It started with George W. Bush and it continues.
I'm the decider.
Well, have you seen recently? So I get him confused.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me
twice. Ain't gonna get fooled again.
I'm not gonna get fooled again.
What was it? So I get Marjorie Taylor Greene and what's the other lady? Boebert.
Oh God.
I get them confused.
I know Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's the Georgia lady. And then who's the other one?
Boebert from like Colorado, I think.
Yeah, Boebert's Colorado.
I get them confused the same way when I'm doing historical stuff. I get the Nazi high command confused. I'm like, wait a minute, was he the guy in charge of the propaganda or was he the architect for the camps? Anyway, one of them is now trying to draw up new articles of impeachment on Biden and Harris, which is weird because like I don't know what the articles are based on, and I don't know like how are you gonna
absolutely love it. So my local representative in Georgia's 1st district, Buddy Carter, guy's a pharmacist, and he ran on we need fairer drug prices. And to be fair, he worked with Democrats on a bill that passed and was signed by President Trump to allow pharmacists to not only recommend, but also, okay, so you've gotten a prescription from your doctor for this brand name drug. This is the generic. It may be more affordable for you. It's totally fine for pharmacists to do that.
That's great. Yeah,
that's a really good thing. Buddy Carter has done nothing else in Congress except toe Trump's line.
Yep.
And bitch about everything. And the other day, he someone on his staff posted on Facebook that like Biden needs to resign right now, and somebody in the comments just went like, all you guys are talking about Biden resigning. Do you really want Kamala Harris to be president that badly? Like, who wants Kamala Harris to be president? And I just replied to it, Congressman Buddy Carter, obviously. And
I mean, less chance of her dying in office, so I'd take Kamala.
Facebook page commenting things like, and Jesus said that Buddy Carter is God or something like she's a Buddy Carter stan. She replied to my comment of Buddy Carter, apparently. She goes, he most certainly does not. And I just went, what do you think will happen if Biden resigns? What do you guys think will happen? Even if you remove Biden and Harris, that gives us President Pelosi.
Right.
Who I would also be happy with because that would trigger the shit out of the conservatives.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
My favorite part.
And then she appoints Hillary Clinton as VP.
9 Supreme Court nominees. Like just absolutely steamroll the court. But
my
that
favorite
would be the dream, but fucking
favorite
sadly, that's probably not going to happen in our lifetime.
Because
if it does, it'll be at the tail end of it.
My dream, and you may have to bleep this out, is Joe Manchin's head on a stick. Like it's
hey, you didn't say how it got there, and that's fine. We didn't say
how it got there. I could also be talking about like, you know, a fried treat, you know, with some breading around a hunk of meat in the shape of Joe Manchin's head.
Exactly.
I would like to go to the Kentucky State Fair or the West Virginia State Fair and get Joe Manchin's head on a stick.
My favorite thing about Buddy Carter is because I keep up with local politics is every time online he posts something, I scroll down and like it always shows Bobby just commenting resign. And it makes me laugh so hard that every time anywhere Buddy Carter goes and posts something,
that gets them so mad. I had a guy comment on because that's every time I see that Buddy Carter has posted, like I'm starting to get alerts. I don't follow him. Facebook is like, yeah, you interact with this Facebook page a lot. Here you go.
Oh no.
And all
like here's the
and I get these like 70-year-old dudes going, you're just a punk ass. And I was like, okay, grandpa, let's get you to bed. And that triggers them. No,
I want to go to bed. This is America. Can't nobody make me go to bed.
It's 4:15 p.m. I'm still waiting for supper. Then I'll go to bed.
1776. I don't go to bed until I want to.
Same since the Golden Corral at the Oglethorpe Mall got shuttered.
You know, it's funny because
I kitchen buffet. I think so.
I sent you guys that video. I saw that video, that crazy racist lady on the train the other day, like fighting.
Yeah, I mean, like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, like getting in a fight with like two different black guys, who had nothing to do with her.
Who don't know each other.
Yeah,
she's acting like they're ganging up on her. These gentlemen do not know each other.
And I saw it, and my brain just went, man. These people are still really taking the whole Ruby Bridges thing real hard, aren't they? Like
she's yelling at one of them, and then she about faces and starts yelling at the other one. And my brain for a second thinks, "No, wait, how did he? Wait, no, that's a different guy. But what the fuck is she doing?"
That's a racist dude. It's like if you remember one of the Terminator movies when it couldn't find John Connor, the Terminator then just started finding other people in the resistance. That's what racists do. They're like, if I can't find the person I'm mad at, I'm just going to target other brown people.
Just picture like the second Terminator movie, how they're just killing everyone named Sarah Connor. Now picture that, but with skin color.
Yeah. No, every time I see this now, I go, man, y'all are still mad over that whole school thing, aren't you? Like, y'all never let that go, did you?
Segregation or desegregation? Not in my town. Oh God, no.
Yeah, it's just and the worst part about the end of that video was, those guys got off the train and she's sitting there with a bloody mouth, still freaking out, and then she's
yelling at people. I see you looking at me.
She starts flicking her blood on two white guys across the train from her because they didn't get up and help a white woman that was being racist. And I just tell you guys,
my favorite bit was that one lady sitting next to her just like gets up and yeets the second she starts fighting.
That's New York. That's what you do in New York. As soon as that shit pops off, dude, get up and go. Because if not, you're gonna get blood flicked on you.
After she tried to bop him in the face with the book, so he just pushed the book into her nose.
Yeah.
I just started sitting there, like in my mind, it just started running. Bum bum ba da da da.
So like and this is what I've come to.
New York.
When you're in a situation like that, somebody's
a terrible town. The skies are all brown and the water is brown.
Somebody's flicking blood at you on a train. If you hit them more, they're just going to bleed more, right? So, like, what do you do? Because you don't want to get them all over your hands because you don't know where they've been, Lou.
Final form.
You don't know where I've been, Lou. You don't know where I've been.
My plan in this situation, and I thought about it a lot, is I'm going to just use all legs. Like, I'm just going to, I'm going to use that kick.
Kicking and stomping and
I'm going to use that kick that's about to become illegal in the UFC where you kind of check them, use your foot to push them back. And I'm just going to just all feet. Because I can get new shoes. You know what I mean? You can bleed all over my shoes.
Make paraplegics out of them like the Afghans.
Yeah, I'm gonna Sparta kick that lady across the train and then use my feet to keep her away from me.
Trying to think of a name of a train.
I'm so glad my commute is me walking to work now.
Oh, that's
right.
Nice.
Yeah,
I still have a nice bike ride, but I take the bus some days because I just don't feel like it.
I passed a guy the other day and he was yelling at cars and then he just started yelling. He was yelling, "Kill Joe Biden." And I go, man, you know what? It's good not to be on a train with him right now. Because I can just keep running down the street.
Yeah. You run to work? That must be fun.
Sometimes I run, sometimes I walk.
No, it's whenever you encounter the guy who's like, impeach Joe Biden, like you just need to walk up with a countersign that says President Harris now. Like
what do we want? Harris. When do we want her?
Those that meme with the two hands are like at this and they're like together. It's like do that, but with impeach Joe Biden and President Kamala Harris now.
Do they not? So I swear to God, they don't think more than one move ahead. So they killed impeachment.
It's called 5D chess. You don't have to think one move ahead. They're thinking 30 moves ahead.
They killed impeachment. Joe Biden can just fucking ignore that shit.
Joe Biden could
get back. Let's say conservative fantasy world is the red wave in 2022. They get a supermajority in the Senate. They get a majority in the House because filibuster doesn't matter in the House anyway. And they go ahead and decide to impeach Joe Biden on something like we found a photo of Joe Biden actually like killing an immigrant kid. And they're like, that's unpresidential. We can impeach him for that. And they impeach him. It means nothing. Yeah. It literally means nothing. Yep. And that is,
we learned that from President Trump is that he doesn't have to resign. He doesn't have to do shit.
Yeah.
Impeachment doesn't mean anything. He just chills there.
we learned that no, Nixon did not have to resign.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nixon did not have to resign.
Unfortunately, Nixon had too
That's-
much shame.
When you're the president, you actually are above the law. They will never arrest Joe Biden for anything for the rest of his life. Trump's countless crimes have proven that.
Well, I will
Trump
say,
has actively hurt so many people.
I don't
and
know
has
about the
broken
rest
so
of
many
his life
laws.
though. Like he might still get snared because fucking people haven't forgotten.
I doubt. Well, I mean, like there might be
and I also I
civic
made a post
justice,
about
but not.
this, about the was it the Woodward book that just came out?
Yes,
about
yeah.
insurrection. Anyway, and
About
it
how
was
they were trying to make sure he didn't start nuclear war. They were like reassuring
yeah,
other
yeah.
countries. It's like, don't worry, he's
basically a U.S. general
took the codes from him.
contacted a military leader in China and said, "Don't worry, the adults are still in the room. He's gone berserk, but we're not letting him anywhere near weapons." And like I've told, we the basically the Joint Chiefs were all united in together by saying, don't let him initiate anything. He's gone off the rails. We just have to make it to the inauguration.
Yeah.
And I just
imagine the
posted on
existential
Facebook,
horror
and
they
we're
would face
supposed to
if he
be-
did run again.
Yeah, I posted on Facebook. I was like, and we're supposed to be upset about this?
Yeah.
Like, I want them to do that to Biden. Like, no, you're not allowed to start a war in the last week and a half of your fucking presidency.
I want
True,
when you lose the election, I want there to be like a week of transition. And even then,
There's supposed to be like weeks of transition. Just Trump
No, but
didn't do it.
No, I want
Trump
your
just refused to let
powers.
it happen.
Once you lose, I want most of your power to be removed because there's no more dangerous than a loser in the White House that still has a
Ideally, it
nuclear
is
code.
like that's why they're called lame duck presidents at that point. Because like technically they've been castrated, but
they can
they're not supposed to do anything. I love it. So somebody pointed out the other day that Newsmax and OAN, some of their, because they hire all of their like writing staff is straight out of college. It's just kids who need a job, and it doesn't pay very well. They're just working. And like I've actually worked with some of these people who like came up through Newsmax and Russia Today and whatnot. And they were hiring, it's a network hiring people straight out of college. Like it can't be quality. But also this one former producer of theirs was talking about how the weird little quirks that the owners of the basically they editorialize everything. Of course, we already know that, but like little tiny tweaks and things, they're not allowed to call Joe Biden President Biden on air.
Mm-hmm.
They're not allowed, and it's never
I believe
former President Trump, and it's never Trump's only term or Trump's term. It's always Trump's first term, as during Trump's first term. Implying that he's electable.
Is still president.
He's not electable. Joe Biden could probably eat a aborted fetus that he aborted on national television while pledging allegiance to ISIS, and people will still not vote for Donald Trump. Not after January 6th.
Right.
That's all the Democrats have to do to defeat Trump is run ad after ad after ad after ad of Trump saying at his inauguration, American carnage, and then footage from inside the Capitol.
American carnage, folks.
About these
American
people not only not playing 5D chess, they somehow, like the Boberts and the other Nazi Barbie, they apparently they missed the second part of like the French Rev, where like everyone just kind of went guillotine crazy, and everyone's like, the guillotine will always be on my side, and I'm just like,
that's what I always say. That's what I always say whenever they're like, oh, you want communism? Communism killed 40 trillion people. I'm like, yeah, man. And the French Revolution killed hundreds of thousands. Down with republics. It's never worked. Like, it's
yeah. No, I just people don't. I feel like people don't understand. Like once you start the bloodletting, like it starts to escalate, and it's very, very hard to go back.
That's
and
why
like
I'm so fucking. I get physically ill whenever like a 28-year-old middle class fail son is like, what we need in this country is a revolution. I'm like, yeah, because you're going to be one of the people that's okay when that revolution happens. But right now,
when the revolution comes, you will not be spared. I've always assumed that I'm.
I was talking with a friend of mine who is an honest, he's a tanky. We don't get along on a lot of things, but we're still friends. Tanky is a person who stands Stalin. Stalin did nothing wrong.
Ah, gotcha.
wait, hold on. Let me take a step back. He is pro Stalin.
Yes.
Like Joseph, the Iron Man Stalin.
Joseph Robinette Stalin. Yes.
Did nothing wrong.
Well, or that Stalin was right to do the things that he did and to order the things that he did. And yeah, and part of it bears out of sort of,
You know,
like,
I wouldn't want to be behind your friend in a queue.
I was talking with him, and and he was like, I don't think we're ever going to have another revolution in this country. And I was like, well, at the very least right now, I think we should be glad that we're not having one, because if America had a revolution, let's say it started tomorrow, okay, somebody burns down the Reichstag, the Tsar abdicates, that happens. Our Vladimir Lenin, our Robespierre, our Mao Zedong is going to be Stephen Miller. And the revolution is going to be a reactionary nightmare hellhole of far-right militias and all this other bullshit. It's not going to be the glorious people's revolution.
No, I feel like it's going to look a lot more like the way Afghanistan broke down, like sectionally, or even when you go back to the 90s and you look at what do you call it, like Croatia and Yugoslavia, and the way you had like the army, but you had the people the army were fighting, but then you had all these like kind of different allied white right-wing groups like hunting different groups of people. And like and you're just going to go grocery shopping one day and it may turn out somebody decided to snipe everybody in your neighborhood that goes to the fucking food mart. I feel like it's going to look a lot like that.
Yeah.
And Bobby, you know, I wouldn't want to be stuck behind your friend in a queue.
Why?
Because he's always stalling up the line.
I want to hear I want to see the gymnastics routine this guy has to go through.
Well, the thing about it is the thing about it is that a lot of the history that we have been taught and that we do teach about Stalin, especially in this country, is a lot of it's a fabrication. Things like the Holodomor. I'm not saying that the Holodomor was fabricated. I'm saying it, quite frankly, was probably not singularly Stalin's fault. Okay, and it's the idea that Stalin was divine right of ruler autocrat is simply, perhaps during the war there were periods where that was true, but not for the majority of his reign as general secretary of the Communist Party. There's even CIA documents, like intelligence documents, that show, like from the early 1950s, that literally state Americans seem to fully buy into this Stalin is an autocrat line. However, our intelligence shows that there is a high level of power sharing among the upper echelons of Soviet governance.
Right. And
like I said, during the war, it's entirely possible that, yeah, Stalin was an autocrat, but it wasn't the whole time he was in charge. And the Soviet government, in the form that it finally took, because of course, and this is another thing that I have to tell people, like why the Soviet Union struggled and had fucking starvation and atrocities, is that from almost literally 1905 until 1947, they were in a constant state of revolution, revolt, and war. And that takes a toll on infrastructure whenever you are literally, political upheaval, uprising, revolution.
You don't fix the roads when you're constantly worried about like suppressing revolution and stuff.
And you can't fix the roads whenever you can't fix the railroads whenever you need the steel for tanks.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing. And very, very much, if you look at, this is whenever people say like, oh, socialism has failed everywhere it's been tried. I don't know. Cuba's doing okay-ish. Like a lot of the protests that just happened, like we just tried to astroturf a rebellion in Cuba. Like it's very likely the CIA instigated that shit we saw go down earlier this year in Cuba. And it was so fucking hilarious watching Marco Rubio on Fox News talking about how the Cuban people just want to be free from the regime. And the video they're playing in the box next to his head is literally pro-government protesters holding up signs saying, "We stand with the revolution. We stand with the Revolutionary Guard. Viva Cuba."
More than anything else.
To the point where those protesters realized that they were being told via various different, they got VPNs and stuff like that. They're being told by allies in the States, hey, they're legit showing your protest on camera. All your signs are in Spanish. Put them in English. Put your signs in English. And Fox News had to start blurring out the protester signs. And part of the reason for it was because the anti-government protests, which were all about vaccines, and that the government was not being very transparent with, like, we're still working on our vaccine because Cuba wants to do it homegrown, and fuck anything if a communist country doesn't want to do things itself. They don't want to take the American vaccine or the French vaccine or the British vaccine or the Russian vaccine. They want to make one in-house. And, that's neither here nor there, but that's what people were upset about. They weren't angry that their government was communist. They were angry that COVID was still going on and they didn't have an effective vaccine. And the right-wing narrative, and even the liberal narrative in this country, was the Cuban people are rising up against their government because they hate everything about their government, which simply wasn't true.
Because it's such an embarrassment that this communist country has managed to survive reasonably well. Is it 90 miles off the coast of Florida?
I think it's closer. Yeah, it's not by much, but it is closer.
Yeah, despite the embargoes and the continued attempts of the United States to fund a revolution they're still hanging in there and doing their own thing.
Have we lifted that embargo?
You have to look up all the wacky schemes the CIA tried to kill Fidel Castro.
Oh, the Kennedy brothers were like two kids in a treehouse.
Because now that I think about it, Obama had lifted a lot of those embargoes, and then Trump put them back. Did Biden go back and lift the Trump embargoes again?
No. Joe Biden, because all of American politics is a ratchet that only goes to the right, and Democrats only stop the ratchet from moving further to the right. Everything that Trump implemented vis-a-vis Cuba and refugees is just still being done.
Yeah. And I'm still frustrated that not only baby cages, but if you guys watch the news, my favorite branch of the government.
Did he get rid of all those baby cages? What about because I remember Trump decided to turn back on the World War II concentration camps for Japanese Americans and just start sticking immigrants in there, and they did not allow cameras in anymore. There's no more inspectors, no more anything. So now they can just do whatever they want to the kids that they kidnap.
I'm pretty sure that's still going on, as far as I know. I haven't
still going on. Biden didn't stop it. All right.
Well, and also most of these detention centers, guess what they are?
For-profit, motherfucker.
For-profit, privatized. Why? Because the for-profit prisons.
The government people get kickbacks.
When Obama said the federal government was going to start, the federal government was going to start weaning itself off of private prisons, and that meant stock options were tanking for private prisons because not a lot of states can afford private prisons. Some can. Texas can.
Stop arresting so many people. They only need so many prisons because they arrest so many prisons because prisons are for profit. So they have a certain quota to meet. Yeah. Prisoners are the product that police provide to these companies so that then they can get money to buy more.
Judges have been found guilty of literally working with private prison companies, taking kickbacks for issuing longer sentences. Mandatory minimums and stuff. They won't issue the mandatory minimum. They'll issue a much longer sentence so that the prison can profit off of the slave labor of the prisoner. And a super fun thing that a lot of people need to realize, many of the products you see that say made in the USA are made in prisons.
And the thing is that no one...
A U.S. soldier was issued in Iraq and Afghanistan was made in a prison for 25 cents an hour.
It's so fucked up because it's so easy to make people not give a shit about prisoners, because at that point it's like these people did something wrong, so clearly they deserve to be there. And it's so easy to scare the shit out of people whenever you start talking about, oh, you released the spooky prisoners back into the street to rape your daughters again. It's like, that's not what they're there for. It's usually just like a black guy that had a joint and they just locked him up forever, or a black guy who was guilty of being black in public, right? And so now he's in prison forever, like making shit for you to buy cheaply from the store, and it makes the government money. It makes companies money. It drives me insane, like how little people care about prisoners, even if they did do something wrong, right? Let's say, okay, they did do something wrong. They were loitering, or they, I don't know, whatever. They did some minor petty offense. Okay, they're now guilty of something for sure. Do they deserve to be exploited for slave labor and have their entire lives ruined behind bars?
Yeah.
Like,
well, because you're not looking at it from the point of view of once you go into the prison system, you're actually being demoted as far as your class. So whatever class that you were in, now you're of the prisoner class, right?
CASTE.
Yeah. So your class or your caste, right? So now you've just kind of stepped down in the caste system, and that version of the caste system is largely invisible because now you're part of the prisoner class. Fuck you, like that's the way it's kind of treated.
You see this all the time in society, that as soon as one person admits to doing something wrong, everyone turns against them hard. It's so easy to hate someone that admits to fault once you know someone's guilty. Now, at this point, we're just telling people that they're guilty. So everyone's immediately like, okay, fuck them. They did something wrong. So we wash our hands of it. We'll no longer defend them. They may have, they may not have. But then at that point, the government's free to do whatever they want to the person, lock them up forever.
So it gets even better with my favorite.
That is definitely a systemic problem, like a way that society views the guilty, that society views certain people. And it's going to be I don't even know where to start to convince people that these people aren't dangerous. They are victims.
I'm going to start.
A lot of them are. Not all of them, of course, obviously, but Jesus Christ.
I'm going to start a new segment called My Favorite Nazi. Or Nazi of the Week, because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's wonderful pictures of our border patrol chasing down immigrants on horses with whips. With whips.
But don't worry, guys. The Biden administration has now laid out a new rule, and we will no longer use horses.
I feel like horses weren't the problem.
We solved it. Okay.
So now they're just running them down on foot with a whip.
The horses got.
Or they're using rollerblades or a Segway. Could you imagine that, being chased by a guy on a Segway with the whip?
One of those big off-road Segways with like almost truck tires on them.
Yeah. Yes. Fucking 4-wheelers and go-karts. That looks better.
Or a big hamster ball like in Bubble Boy.
Because I feel like horses are a legitimate tool that you would use as border patrol, right? It's like rough and accessible. You can't always get a car out there. But yeah, I like it. They're like, no more horses. Yes, because the horses were the ones guilty of it.
It's whenever you are riding on a horse. Okay, it is.
I'm on a horse.
It is a human instinct. If you are riding a horse, you have to start beating the shit out of people,
especially brown people.
Poor people. Humans instinctually do it. Okay, I mean, look at cops on horseback. It's not the cops' fault. It's the horses.
Yeah, the horses are a bad influence on cops.
Exactly. The horses,
you know what I mean?
These fucking primordial.
These fucking racist ass horses.
Oh my god!
Look at how Gilgamesh treated Enkidu whenever he was on a horse. It was rough. He drug him around the tower for 3 days. Clearly, for the past 7,000 years, horses have been a bad influence. One
of my favorite arguments was the Border Patrol released a statement, said they weren't whips, they were horse reins. I go, so it was a completely different piece of leather that you used to whip somebody with. But it wasn't like an official Indiana Jones merchandising whip. It was just a strap of leather that was on your horse. Everything's okay, right? As long as it wasn't official merch.
Sort of like whenever they said it wasn't tear gas they shot the protesters with, and actually it was literally tear gas because it was still counted as tear gas. But they tried to split hairs over what type of gas Trump gassed his own people with.
They always do that, and it's like, I'm not going to argue that because guess what? I don't care. The major point, you can argue semantics all you want. That doesn't, the major point is still the same. You gassed people. You whipped immigrants because you're an asshole.
Literally a war crime, by the way. Literally a war crime. If
whipping
we
people from horseback?
done that in Afghanistan, which we probably did. But
probably, because again, they're viewed as being guilty, so whatever we do to them is okay.
Literally a war crime.
It's frustrating that we were the pushing factor behind the Nuremberg trials because Stalin wanted to give them a fake show trial and execute the Nazi high command. Winston Churchill just wanted to kill them and throw them in a ditch. And the United States was like, no, we have to give them a real trial with
everyone knows you back home. Thank God for Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, everyone's getting rights and stuff. And we did that. And then it's after that, it's just been a downhill of just we don't have to give these people a trial. Fuck them.
And we really ran out of steam on that whole let's show moral superiority because the Nuremberg trials were supposed to be a much larger thing, prosecuting a lot more people. And then we started doing the same thing after Japan capitulated, but then we just didn't.
I will
And
say at
literally
least
the same people who were running Japan before the war started took over after the war was over, and nationalism and fascism continue to be issues in Japan. And
Emperor
most
Hirohito is
notably,
gone, so clearly
well,
all is good.
I mean, we couldn't put Hirohito, we couldn't put the emperor on trial. We couldn't do it. That would literally have been such a psychological shock to the Japanese people that, I mean, there it was crazy, that photo of MacArthur, giant fucking 6'12" MacArthur standing next to 5'2" emperor, like that broke people. Like they had never seen a picture of the emperor, and then here's this American just dominating the shit out of the guy just a few months ago. You had been told your whole life.
You know, honestly, I would have been okay with putting him on trial or throwing him off a ship in the middle of the ocean.
Of course, way fewer people in Japan actually believed he was a god than we believed, or than we believed that they did. A lot of that was just like American propaganda.
I should take that back. I wouldn't mind throwing Hirohito off a ship, but as long as we threw a cinder block in after him. He's like, please help! I can't swim, and fucking here's a flotation device, asshole.
Yeah. Well, speaking of World War II,
yes.
Can I do that time period basically? Can I do all of the past was terrible?
All of the past was terrible. Yes, let's hear why all of the past was terrible.
So you're telling me World War II is a terrible time in history?
Yeah, well, it's the shit leading up to World War II was also bad, and I'm gonna come back to my boy Huey Long. I am a huge Huey Long stan. So Huey Long wrote a book, and it was published posthumously. For people who don't know, Huey Long was the dictator of the state of Louisiana in the 1920s. And basically, he was elected to the office of the governor. He fired almost every judge he didn't like immediately, replaced them with, I mean, just presumably everyone with the surname Long. He caused a shit ton of like scandals to break out that specifically got his political opponents in the legislature to resign, and single-handedly, like within a period of 3 to 4 months, consolidated all power, all political and economic power in the state to the office of the governor, which of course was him. And then with all this power and might and all that, what did he do? He got all of our roads paved, made sure that every school child didn't have to pay for books, eliminated poll taxes and poll tests, and then started a statewide charity hospital system. Yeah, good guy Huey. Good guy Huey. Okay, he's the benevolent dictator. Okay, he was the Perez's of he was the Perones of Louisiana.
Didn't they think that he might have been the only one that could have given FDR a run for his money for president?
Here's the thing. Okay, that may be a little bit of Huey's own propaganda. Okay, so both Huey Long and FDR ran on a platform, ran their political platforms as, if we don't reform, the socialists are going to overthrow the government. It's too popular. If we don't give people if we don't stop giving them breadcrumbs and let them eat at the table, we're going to have a fucking revolution. Just like Russia did, just like Germany almost did, just like they tried to do in Britain, and like the syndicalists tried to do in France. We're going to have to deal with this, but we can nip it in the bud if you just stop it, Rockefeller. Stop it. Okay? Anyway, so Huey Long was, for those who don't know, he was assassinated in, God damn it, I should know this off the top of my head, but I don't. He was assassinated on the 10th of September, 1935 by a man by the name of Carl Weiss. I don't know a lot about Carl Weiss, but anyway, Weiss attempted to assassinate then Senator Long, and Senator Long's bodyguards opened fire in a marble-lined hallway of the Louisiana State Capitol building that Huey Long got built. And the bullet holes are still in those walls today, and there's a huge display case like showing, what the newspapers at the time and things like that. And it was the funniest thing, because this is before television. So they put out, nobody knew who Carl Weiss was. So they put out over the radio, like all the Baton Rouge stations, and of course it got picked up across the Gulf Coast and the rest of the state, that the Senator Long has been assassinated. And they released a description that a white man in a brimmed hat, wearing a blue seersucker suit, has assassinated former governor and the late Senator Huey Long. And everyone in Louisiana went, "Oh shit, did I do it?" Like, it was just such a generic description.
It's like anytime the cops put out an APB for a black man, you know,
killed the governor. Like, but anyway. So posthumously in 1936, his family published a book that he had been writing that was called My First Days in the White House. And when I tell you, you know, those people who go through life and they are the main character,
right?
You know those people,
yeah.
And
Human
it's
beings,
not
all of them.
Narcissism, but it's definitely, they're the main character in this story that's happening.
Everyone's the main character of their own story.
Huey Long literally wrote a book where he was the first character, where he was the main character in the story of history. And it's called My First Days in the White House. I'm not done with it yet, but it reads like the most benevolent, megalomaniacal man you've ever heard in your life. But here's why all the past was terrible. FDR hated Huey Long initially because he knew that Huey Long could give him a run for his money in the 1936 election. Okay. To the point where Huey could have split the vote. He could have run as an independent, you know, that nightmare scenario, and we could have ended up with Dewey as president. That was the whole, you know, Dewey ran again, and the newspaper Truman defeated by Dewey as he's holding it up, smiling, whatever. I think it was Dewey. Anyway, I don't know presidential losers like I know presidential winners, because you know, we like winners here. We do. We like winners.
We like winners, folks. Bigly.
So My First Days in the White House, Huey Long basically puts out his platform. Okay, his platform for running for president, and in it, his platform is, and this is why all of the past is terrible, is because all of these ideas that we have now and that we're pushing for now,
right,
people have been pushing for well over 100 years.
Right,
okay,
yeah.
Remember, this is the 1930s. We are 10 years shy of where Huey Long was writing about how every family worth less than $2,000 to receive a stipend monthly from the government.
Yeah.
UBI. He also wanted
universal basic income, and I'm so happy that Jim Sterling started to hammer on this recently too.
He also wanted to found a national healthcare system that would be completely run by the local people. He wanted syndicalized hospitals that were owned by the nurses and doctors that work there. Next up, he wanted to cap all wealth at $50 million, which, if you do the math, would today be just shy of $1 billion. Okay, just shy of $1 billion.
So no one can have more than $1 billion. I could agree with that. Like, we shouldn't. I feel like it is morally reprehensible for billionaires to exist when there are so many people starving in the streets, or when there's so many people that are just barely scraping along.
Huey Long agrees with you, but here was his point. Here was his plan, because he wanted to be the great uniter. He describes at the beginning of the book that it's my inauguration day. I'm on the steps of the Capitol facing the throngs of the unwashed masses, and they're chanting my name so loudly no one can hear the brilliant and beautiful speech that I've written. Like, he's really, like, Donald Trump channeled Huey Long a lot. But populist got a populist. Anyway. So he's like, and as I'm making the drive in the slick Cadillac car
which
down
Mexico paid for
Avenue to my new lodgings at the White House, I'm steadily writing on a sheet of paper the names of the men who will fill my cabinet. And within the hour, the Senate will approve every one of them. And I'm sitting here going, Huey, that's not how it works. But anyway, so he basically wanted to take a smorgasbord of, like, he wanted FDR to be Secretary of the Navy. He wanted Herbert Hoover to come in and run
Is that the best fit for him?
He was already Secretary of the Navy at one point.
Yeah, he was. He wanted to bring him back as Secretary of the Navy. Okay. And he even has like fictional conversations with these people when they come to visit him. And he's just like,
he wrote them out.
It's me. So you're going to do it. And everyone's like, you know, Huey, you're right. I will do it. It's just the most self-serving, megalomaniacal shit I have ever read in my entire life. And I'm sitting here going, honestly, oh my God. Why did we never have President Huey Long? And it's
that kind of reminds me of
while trying to stop Carl Weiss.
Honestly, what that kind of reminds me of is Final Fantasy 14 story. It's a game that's just like 500-600 hours of very, very attractive people telling you how awesome you are. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I can groove on this.
It's video games are nothing if not wish fulfillment. It's I love the argument that video games
they tapped into what people actually want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that video games make you violent. I was like, if video games make you violent, I am a genocidal maniac because I don't play these piddly little first-person shooters where your body count is only in the tens of thousands, okay? I play grand strategy games, all right? Yeah. One time, as the United Nations of Earth, I conquered an alien race and literally committed a genocide doing it.
Just like, blow the whole planet up.
Trillions.
I mean,
okay? Like,
if games
cities, I nuked them into the dust. Like,
if games make you violent, then I'm definitely a pirate king because with Minecraft, I managed to seed a second village, and now I'm building a giant island pirate fortress in which I plan to fill with villagers to appease
Jack
me.
Thompson's coming for you.
like that's all I'm doing right now. Is like I'm just like.
I love it because it's somebody, I forget who the fuck it was, but somebody was making fun of conservatives just going, yeah, George Orlando talked about this in his famous novella 1987, and I busted out laughing. George Orlando's 1987.
That sounds like George Orwell's like weird porn name.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like an off-brand, like the Kmart of Orwell.
Did you know that George Orwell funded his books by moonlighting as a prostitute named George Orlando?
It's Mom, we want some George Orwell. We have George Orwell at home.
We got George Orlando at home. It's like those books
George
they sell
Orlando,
at the
1987.
Occasionally the dollar store will decide to stock books. And it's like you look through them and that's all the authors. It's always like slightly off. You know what I mean? Like George Orlando, Stephen Queen.
I was thinking like Stephen King or whatever.
Stephen King.
Steve King.
No. Instead of King, it's just nothing but Dean Koontz novels, just lining the walls of the Dollar General.
Oh, Dean Koontz. So I guess I got one Pete Science Corner before we go, which is fascinating. If you have not read it yet, I've been listening to the audiobook because I did that thing we all do where we sign up for Audible, then we forget we signed up for Audible, and then one day you check it and it's like you have 36 credits. And you're like, oh shit. So I bought these two books. One's called 1491, one's called 1493. And they basically give you a
George Orlando?
Yeah, like George Orlando. George Orlando in 1491. As everyone knows, Columbus landed in 1492. So they're basically, the books are kind of like giving you a really good overview of pre-Columbian Native American societies and then what happened post-Columbus and colonization.
Yes.
Friggin' fascinating. But one of the things they bring up is when the Plymouth colony landed and like started doing their shit, the Narragansett tribe and the trying to remember the other tribe that was right there. They're thinking now that in fact it wasn't smallpox that wiped out that particular group of Native Americans. They think it may have been a form of viral hepatitis, which if you don't know how it's spread through, I guess, like infected blood or fecal matter, like hepatitis A. And it can be with you for weeks or months, so you have a long time to spread it.
Oh no, they brought the racist lady from the train. She pooped all over them and spread her blood.
God,
just like flicking it on them.
But to give you a scope of like how many people this killed, if you guys remember the story of Squanto, how he walked up to the Pilgrims and taught them how to farm and not die. Squanto was actually kidnapped and sold into slavery into Spain, made his way to England, and then made his way back to the New World. Anyway, in the time he was gone, in that 9 years he was gone, when he came back to where he
Because that's where he basically brought the pilgrims to where he was from.
Right.
Right.
And so, so where he was from, that area of the coast, I believe from Maine down into Massachusetts, Wampanoag tribe, that's what it was. It was basically the Wampanoags lived there. And so he comes back home, imagine going back home, and the coastline from, I believe, about a 200-mile stretch from end to end of coastline is now, which used to be teeming and full of people, is a ghost town. There's no one. The villages are empty. They're full of dead, decomposed bodies. And this stretch is about 200 miles down the coast and 60 miles deep. So you go up and down the coast 200 miles, and then you go inland 60 miles, and it's nothing but like death. They find a couple of people that survived that like kind of got picked up by another tribe that told them what happened. But in 9 years, that to give you a scope of like the how quickly these different diseases could like wipe people out, like it was amazing. And so a lot of the pilgrims and the colonists ended up basically setting up their colonies kind of on top of the dead bodies and villages.
Somebody on Twitter, maybe when this book came out, I don't know, but like tweeted it out, and they were like, it's the native population went from something like 90 million in North America to maybe 10 million in a span of like 5 years. And someone retweeted that and said, I think I now understand why Americans are so obsessed with apocalypse media and stuff like that. It's because we're living on top of one.
And it's really interesting though, because everyone thought it was smallpox, but now they think, and we'll never really know unless, I guess, like science advances to the time travel, or to the point in which we can just like dig down, and it's getting better every day, but until we can find like a scrap of Native American hair that we were able to like test to a certain point anyway. But it was just fascinating, just to me, imagining going back to Georgia and going back to Tattnall County, and just a 200-mile stretch of Tattnall County being devoid of people, and then like 60 miles inland, like just everyone's gone, like just like really kind of brings the scale. I don't know why those measurements specifically stuck in my head, but I was like, holy shit.
Picture everyone being dead except for Wesley, who's still just at his house, unaware that anything's going on. Oh, they haven't called me into work lately. I don't know what's wrong, but I'm just sitting here waiting for Dad to get back from the store.
Wesley's house already looks like the post-apocalypse, so it would just blend in with what do you call it, with the death and destruction.
Speaking of hearing from a person who heard from a person, Wesley's cousin's ex-wife just died of COVID, didn't get the shot. So I mean, for people that need to hear like degrees of separation to justify their actions, there you go, you need to get the shot.
And for anybody,
hey everybody, Ben says hi.
Hey, the ducky on the wall.
If anybody's listening or watching this and they're not sure about the shot, all I can tell you is I've had COVID and I've had the shot.
If you're not watching, you're missing the dog. Watch us on YouTube.
And COVID's way worse.
Ben is a sweet boy.
I mean, there's been many times in my
COVID.
There's been times in my life I've almost drowned, where I've like fallen in bodies of water, or like as a kid. COVID was the first time I almost drowned, laying in my own bed, going, "Oh, I can't breathe. That's a problem. Don't like where this is going."
And to motivate all the white people in the audience, if you don't get the COVID vaccine, I'll kill this dog.
Well, Alabama apparently just hit the Alabama.
He'll do it. He's crazy.
There was a statistic done in Alabama. Alabama has just now hit the point. Alabama is in, what is it called, Bobby, when more people are dying than are being born?
Depopulation. I don't know.
Alabama is currently hitting that depopulation numbers, where so many people in Alabama are dying. So there are more people are dying than being
faster
born.
than. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so Alabama.
That's gonna be great for the what do you call it?
About this debate about like, oh, nobody wants to work, or nobody wants to work for your low wages, and like there's like
we are seeing
there's
an amazing trend right now.
5 million unfilled positions or something like that.
Yeah, really shit ones.
And I'm sitting here going, well, you do realize that like 750,000 people have died.
Right.
And
that too.
A not unsizable portion of the population is currently in ICU beds. Like that is also contributing to this. And like, I have to keep telling people, I'm like, they're like, oh, the economy's not bouncing back. I'm like, that's because under Trump, the economy shrunk. Like it shrunk. Now, there are jobs that are unfilled, but also a shit ton of jobs went away.
Yeah.
Like, downsizing rarely retranslates into, well, we're going to hire these people back. Like, those jobs are gone.
I'll tell you a problem.
Speaking of jobs, was something I wanted to talk about.
The people who were working these middle class jobs are like, stuff in like manufacturing, but also office jobs and things like that have simply gone away because of like automation and corporate cost cutting. A lot of those reason for back, and a lot of those people feel overqualified to go wait tables. And I'm not going to go from being assistant account executive for a radio station's sales department to being a bartender. Like,
yeah, it's really fucking hard to walk backwards in life like that. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, back in the day I did that. Yeah, you probably bust tables for like, a few months out of college, but then you got a real job and you don't have to deal with the service industry, which is fucking awful. We're actually seeing a record number
wearing a suit and said, hi, I'd like one job, please. And they were like, oh, you're a white man? Sure. Like,
yeah, they did that. They got a job back in the day when being white qualified you to just have a career waiting for you.
One of the major problems with the United States is that we're really, really good at processing dead people and like getting them down the assembly line to be buried very, very quickly. I just read a thing about a guy that works, I guess.
I'm still wanting to talk about jobs, so this might go like in a whole different direction.
Well, no, I just mean like the massive numbers of dead people. Can't even comprehend how many people are fucking dying right now because the bodies haven't made it to the streets yet.
We will definitely hit 1 million COVID deaths before the end of the year.
Definitely. But like Peter, you just noticed recently like how rough it is going back to work after being indoors all those times, right? And it's rough like standing there.
For me, that's because
a lot of people are
just after my 3.5 weeks of quarantine, while my roommate and I had tested positive,
right?
We were in quarantine for 3.5 weeks, and the first place I went after we both got a negative test was a Parker's, which for people who don't know, it's kind of like coastal
gas station.
Wawa. Yeah, it's not as good as Wawa, but it's the same thing. It's like a regional chain of quick stops. And I walked inside, and I remember like I was wearing a mask. I had obsessively washed my hands before I got inside. And walking into that store after being in my house for 3.5 weeks, it felt like I was walking on the moon. Like, and I was looking around, and there were people without masks. They were talking. They were close to each other. Everyone was nuts to butts in line, and I was just sitting here going, "I am on a different planet. Like, I have emerged from a time capsule, and I don't understand what all the kids' haircuts look like anymore. Like, it just,
Yeah, I remember the first place I went after quarantining during the very start of COVID was Walmart, and I was wearing a mask, and it felt so fucking weird being in there because it was a long time before they started requiring customers to wear masks and social distance and all that. So I was just like a bit just worried to get anywhere close to anyone. I was just like sort of in and out. I just needed to get out of here as quickly as possible. Yeah. It's so fucking weird. But so during COVID, because everyone was able to actually pull away from the hustle and bustle of the 9 to 5 and actually just stay inside for a while, it allowed everyone to take a step back from the world that they had been shoved into and realize that there is a better way of living than slaving away at a job where you're paid a starvation wage and you're treated without dignity and you're expected to put up with this shit because it's do it or die. And they realize that there is a way to live without that do it or die sort of Damocles dangling over your head all the time. So record numbers of people are starting to quit shit jobs, and that's yet another reason why there's so many unfilled jobs right now, because people are starting to demand dignity and real wages. And also, like you just said, and that wasn't even something I'd considered, was that a lot of people have lost their good jobs, and now it's all these shit jobs that are all like, we really need people here at the Fordhams to bust tables, and it's like, no one wants to put up with that shit because that is misery. That honestly, is the hardest job in the world, is having to work in the service industry and deal with shitty people with their shitty attitudes.
This is going to sound
you're
bad.
Always on your feet, and
because I'm a teacher, and like teachers are one of the most underpaid, abused like jobs out there. But even with what I mean, and I'm in one of the best places to teach in New York, but,
and you're still paid like a decent wage.
But I swear to God, I look at what other people go through at jobs, and I go, yeah, I'd punch a manager in his mouth for talking to me like that. Like,
right?
Fuck that.
A friend of mine told me that this is a friend of mine from college. He told me that like his first job was at a print shop, like a print shop anyway. And one of his coworkers was this guy who left Russia after the Soviet Union collapsed, but he was like, he had worked in a print shop in Soviet Russia, and so he came to the United States, and he and his family settled here. And he goes, that guy, I fucking loved that guy, because like the manager would get all up in his own ass, and that guy would stand up and go, "This is how you talk to me? You do not talk to me this way. You do not talk to any of us this way. Do you think you own us? You do not own us." And he was like, just
I love that guy.
Propaganda just pouring out of his veins. Like, fuck you. You work for me, bitch. You work for me.
I love it. That's wonderful.
Yeah, no, maybe it's because I'm old too, but some of the shit I put up with growing up at these jobs, I'm just like, never again, motherfucker.
You know what would fix all of this though? Universal basic income. Once we don't require their shitty little jobs to stay alive, suddenly they'll have to start treating people with dignity, with respect. Suddenly they'll have to actually, pay them enough to make it worth their while. Suddenly the employee is the one in charge instead of the billionaires in their high ivory towers.
It becomes a workers market, not an
speaking
market.
Speaking of, if you're wondering like, well, how are they supposed to pay for all this? Let's illegalize being a billionaire. That way all that money from the top goes back down and spreads out among everyone, right? And then we have the money to pay people living wages.
Invest their money. No, they fucking do, but they invest in companies that are already worth billions of dollars. I mean, you think Jeff Bezos is going on Kickstarter? No. Like,
Jeff Bezos, get at me.
Every dime they pay is to get that money back, but just a little bit more, right? Like that's how investments work. I will spend $10 million to make $10 million in $1.
I forget who said it, but somebody went, we need to take all the billionaires, okay? They get to keep $1 billion, and we're going to designate an area for them, and it's just going to be billionaire land, and they can go there and do whatever the fuck they want. They can even do illegal shit, I don't care, but the rest of their money goes back to the people, directly back to the people in the form of a one-time stimulus check, and certain marginalized groups get higher stimulus checks as in a form of reparations. And the billionaires can go live in this land, and if anyone else makes it to $1 billion, they're instantly picked up and brought to this place where they can go have fun with all the other billionaires, and they'll receive an award. We'll have an award show for everyone that makes it to $1 billion. That's called "Congratulations, you won capitalism. Now please kindly fuck off." Like, no one needs $1 billion.
It's honestly, the way they used to trick peasants into working was that like you work hard and then one day you'll die and go to heaven. Well, being a billionaire is the modern day version of that. You know what I mean? You work at McDonald's for 20 years and one day you'll be a billionaire.
They'll make you manager and then you'll move to upper management and then you're a billionaire.
Yep. You can go to Hamburger U.
Exactly. Yeah. So
that's what that's the first time I ever heard that PragerU was masquerading as a fake university to try and trick people into conservatism. My first thought was, oh, so it's Hamburger U. It's tricking people into believing that McDonald's actually gives a shit about them. Like, it's Hamburger U.
We will close it on this. I will tell you my McDonald's story. When I first moved to New York, me and some friends, we were desperately poor and trying like hell just to get employment so we would be able to get a place and stay. We had a very short amount of time to do it. And I was getting desperate. I was applying at like McDonald's, and McDonald's calls me the same day like I applied. This is like 3:00 in the afternoon. They go, "Come in for an interview in an hour." And I was like, I can't because I'm nowhere near you, but hey, we can reschedule for tomorrow. And they go, "No reschedules." And I go, "But it's not on the schedule." What? All right, fuck you, goodbye. Like, I guess at that point that just everyone that applied was just gonna be like, "Oh yes, sir, I'll be there." Like, I'll be there right now. Like, like
that's actually a good filter. Like, they want people that'll take shit. And if you won't take shit, then they're not interested in you because they know you'll quit anyway. Like, because they know that the job is such garbage that it has an extremely high turnover rate.
So weird.
So they're trying to filter people that aren't just going to take it up the ass and
they might
say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another."
They might as well just called me and go, "This is McDonald's. Why are you late to your shift?" am I hired? Not anymore. You're fired. Like,
get me those pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah, I I was like, I guess I'm never working for McDonald's. I'd rather be homeless because at least I could take a break when I wanted, you know?
Oh man,
Jesus
no,
Christ.
Yeah. Oh goodness. All right. Well, I don't have anything to plug this week unless look, My First Days in the White House is available on PDF form. I highly recommend it. It has been a hoot to read. It's only about 170 pages long. It's basically a political pamphlet, but it's essentially Huey Long's manifesto, and it is absolutely. It's some of it is just fucking hilarious. Like the characterizations that he makes of like FDR and Herbert Hoover. He wanted Herbert Hoover to in order he was going to solve the Dust Bowl. This is my favorite part so far. He was going to solve the Dust Bowl by redirecting every river in the country into the Great Plains. We were going to go on an enormous canal and dam building project, the likes of which FDR never even got close to, in order to essentially turn the Great Plains into an ocean. And that was going to stop the Dust Bowl. Like, it was all going to be super hydrated. There was going to be no problems with dust. And yeah, it was just sitting here thinking about the ecological havoc that would have wreaked on the center of the continent.
I mean, like, he's not wrong, though. It would stop the Dust Bowl.
It would just cause a whole bunch of other problems.
Right,
it's
right.
Like you could dam the Straits of Gibraltar. We technically have the engineering know-how to dam the Straits of Gibraltar and put giant fucking locks on the Suez Canal and just dam it up and drain the fucking Mediterranean.
Yeah.
You could do it. It would turn Europe into a desert, and it would only provide salt plains. You couldn't farm on this, and Venice would probably fall to pieces. It would just be it would be a really bad idea.
Hey, he didn't say it wouldn't cause other problems. He just said it would stop that one problem.
Exactly. And that's the kind of forward-thinking, single-mindedness, first character, omega male bullshit that I just fucking love.
And to be fair, I imagine at that point with the Dust Bowl,
my favorite politician of all time.
I imagine people in 1936 were probably like, yeah, why not, reroute the river, because they didn't understand long-term ecological effects.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm going to plug anything, I'm going to plug 1491 by, I believe it's Charles Mann, M-A-N-N. 1491 and 1493. When I started the book, I was like, oh no, is this going to be good or is this going to be boring as shit? But they really opened, I already knew that most of the stuff we were told about Native Americans growing up was BS, but there's so much more stuff. They were beginning to sail, as in they had traded and found wrecked European ships. So the Native Americans were already hitting the age of sail. If we had been a little bit later in our colonization, we would have seen they may have made it to Europe, around the same time we were making it to
and there is some evidence to suggest that it is entirely possible Romans from right around the time of Emperor Trajan may have discovered Brazil, or what is today Brazil. Right. There is some evidence of that, but they certainly didn't make it back.
Right. We do find, what is it, archaeology out of place, where we find peoples that had clearly made voyages we didn't account for. But I mean, when I say Native Americans, I mean on the scale of, we show up with our ships, they already have an equivalent Navy. They're up and down the coast. You know what I mean? Because
that's part of what the Europeans found so fascinating about China and Japan were. Right. Here are two cultures wholly isolated from us, and yet look at how they've organized themselves and how intricate their societies are. And, they're hierarchical, just like we are. There is an emperor who takes his mandate from heaven, and, there are clerics and bureaucracy, and especially the Japanese. The Dutch were crazy about the Japanese, to the point where even during isolation, the Dutch were allowed to trade with the Japanese people, only at one or two ports.
Right.
And so that created a new sector of academia for Japanese scholars called Dutch studies, in which they were studying textbooks and whatnot that they would buy from the Dutch, even possibly shit like electricity. was being studied in Japan at the same time it was being studied in Europe, and it was directly because of oh holy shit, these people are basically Europeans.
Yeah.
They're as advanced as we are. They just haven't started colonizing.
I know we got to go, but the other thing I loved about this book was when the guy, one of the pieces he took, they were describing the difference physically between the Native Americans and the colonists. And so like the Native Americans apparently had not been suffering from famine because of the crops they had, like potatoes and corn and stuff. The way the Europeans were like, well, I guess it's another famine. Yeah. And going to lose all our children again, and the ones that live will be weird and malnourished. So the Europeans show up, they're missing teeth, they're all like, yeah, governor, like deformed and shit, like, and the Native Americans apparently are basically like photo negatives of like the way we think of the Swedes: tall, long hair, well muscled, they have all their fingers and toes, teeth are relatively straight, and like these fucking mutants just show up and they're like, hey, about some of your land. It's the most.
I just love this idea of John Smith having a Cockney accent.
Yeah. By the way, there's a whole thing about him. That dude was an asshole. His name was Captain John Smith. He named himself Captain.
Yeah.
Going to show that if you're a white man,
don't hate the player, hate the game. All right.
I swear to God, that was probably the second name of the book he wrote that Pocahontas was based on, which was all bullshit. It was Captain John Smith. Hate yon player, not yon game.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to plug?
Me, have y'all heard of the award-winning Final Fantasy XIV that now has an extended trial? You can play for free all the way through A Realm Reborn and Heavensward.
Buddy, I'm going to be playing Minecraft for the next 20 years. I'm already drawing blueprints out for my pirate island.
Nice. I'm going to be.
We need to get on. We need to get on building that server.
I'm 100% down with the server. The only thing that makes me sad is the longer it takes to start the server, the more stuff that I have made that I have to leave behind.
Oh, but then you can just rebuild it all.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
that's the fun part.
I'm going to be doing this for the next 20 years.
It's like Legos. You can just take it apart and build something new.
First thing I'm doing is seed my new village.
My life is like Higurashi. I'm a person that lives in loops. So I'm used to just play through the game, build everything, jump to the next one, build it all back again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and I have some legitimately interesting plans for like some people play Minecraft for like the building and like I want to build this one specific thing, and like there's a few people who do like papercraft and stuff like that where they like build old castles and things like that on Minecraft. I am an infrastructure guy. Like I like what's the fastest way to transport a player 1,000 blocks? And how
with a catapult.
There's no catapult. So
jet train.
One thing you can build is called a dolphin superhighway. So dolphins can use any player swimming, the swim boost effect. And if you catch dolphins and you keep them in tanks along a 1x1 tube filled with water, the base of which is soul sand from the nether. And if you're wearing a specific enchantment set of boots and have a speed boost beacon at either end of the tunnel, you can move at like 1,000 blocks a second. And it's fucking insane. And nice. I desperately want to build one of those.
That's amazing because I'm just trying to Stargate it. I'm just building nether portals and then trying to find.
That's totally fine because the nether is for every block traveled in the nether is 8 blocks in the overworld. Right. So the nether can be used for quick transport.
My problem
but
is
you can get it even faster if you build an ice boat road. So in the nether, you get packed ice or blue ice. You can't use regular ice, it'll melt and the water will evaporate because I guess you understand now that you can't have water in the nether.
Yeah.
But packed ice will stay. Blue ice is even better, but it's hard to get. But packed ice, and you lay down basically a street of packed ice, and you get in a boat, and you can go super fucking fast, like almost as fast as a dolphin superhighway. But you're in the nether, so it's taking less time. And of course, you can't have dolphins in the nether; they'll die because you can't. They
right now,
water.
I've completed a whole bunch of other portals as I was exploring along the way, but now I got to go back to the nether and fucking walk my way through the nether and find the other portals.
Yeah, you have to make sure they're linked properly. You could end up underground.
Yeah, that's gonna be that. Yeah,
It's a pain in the ass, man. It really, really is.
It's fun. I'm enjoying discovering it, but right now I'm just working on my pirate castle because that's where my brain is.
Yar.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, say bye, Dan.
Until next time.
Dougie.
Remember, wash your hands and get the shot, you fucking animals.
Yeah.
Or I'll kill this dog.